Hello and welcome everyone, it is me, Silver, also known how to do this, back for you with another event deck profile, back to back. Events are always, a bit of a rough one, but this time we sort of figured it out. Day one didn't start too hot for me, but I would like to say that I did kind of turn my luck around. With a very massive change to the list, which we are going to be talking about today. I learned about this abomination, Runick Morphtronic. Initially, I was on some muddy mud dragon shenanigans, as you can see here. The Colossus, the Dragoon. I was trying to do stupid shit. But somehow this came together rather nicely. So we're going to talk about the list. I'm going to give you guys some honest thoughts because this is definitely not a good deck to play with the Runicks. And yeah, then we're going to look at some replays and kind of wrap this one up. We're going to start with the Morphtronic portion, the thing that probably needs the least introduction for consistent viewers of the channels. All Morphtronic monsters have different effects depending on their battle positions, so I will only point out the relevant ones. For Saffron, that is the attack position effect. You roll a 6-sided die, reveal top cards of the deck equal to your die result, and then you're able to special summon a 4 or lower Morphtronic from those cards, ignoring summoning conditions, which is a huge deal for the next in-line smartphone, since that guy has a special summoning condition. As you can probably tell, just getting guys from the deck is an absolutely huge deal. In this case, Southbound is mainly here to just have decent normal summons. In some cases, I wish Southbound was a tuner, but oftentimes Southbound gets you to a tuner because you're running 9 of those in the main. So it just sort of works out. Next up, we have 3 copies of Smartphone. Can't be normal summoner set, has to be first special summon from hand by banishing a Morphtronic from the grave. Meaning this is a great extender, but also sometimes a bit awkward if you open just this and a couple of runic spells. At which point you will kind of have to hope that you have enough runic spells in hand to get like a fountain draw in to try and dig for like another normal summon, which gets into a bit of the issues of why this isn't necessarily the greatest runic splash. But it was a lot of fun. That's the most important part at the end of it. Smartphone similar to Cellphone. Only relevant part being the attack position effect here. You roll a 6-sided die, reveal cards from the top of your deck, and then you're able to add an excavated Morphtronic card to your hand. Of course, getting you more names into the hand. In this list, there's very few other targets. You can luckily just sometimes spike a repair unit, but you're only playing 3 of that. Usually you will be adding like another name, mostly for follow-up, because this deck does try to, play a bit beyond turn 1, which is very nice. I do quite like that. So yeah, then we're getting to the infamous one, Telephone. Once per turn during attack position effect is, as we all know, you just roll a 6-sided die, gain life times the equal to the result times 100, and then you're able to special a Morphtronic from the graveyard with a level equal or lower than the result. Since a die does not have a number below 1, you're always able to recur a level 1, which just gives you nice opportunities to recur Southphone, Telephone of course as well, or a Smartphone that has been properly special summoned first. Defense position effect of Telephone's also sort of nice. You roll a die, activate the top cards of your deck, and then you're able to send one of the excavated Morphtronic cards to the graveyard, which is pretty neat, honestly. I did not hate that, since it is a way to get like maybe another guy in the graveyard if you have a Smartphone in the grave to like set up that to have like a banish for that. Something I do use on occasion, honestly. Then we're getting into 3 Remotants here. Honestly, a card that I thought was going to put in a lot more work in this list, but also didn't. But we're going to talk about that later. The attack position effect here is once again the relevant part. You're able to target a Morphtronic in the grave, banish it, and then add a Morphtronic with the same level from deck to hand. Something great to ensure you have follow-up or grab extension in the form of Smartphone, since you're usually cycling through all these level 1s. So yeah, Remoten is great for that, and something I did end up adding back into the deck after, not playing it for a while. Gadget Gamer. If this is normal, you add a level 1 machine from deck to hand, which can be, any of the 3 fonts, but usually it will be Telephone, because that way, if you use the second effect of Gadget Gamer, that lets you tribute the guy and special a Morphtronic monster from your hand, and then special summon a Gadget Hauler, which is a soft garnet, from hand or deck. Gives you immediate access to a level 7 Synchro play. Mostly going to be the Power Tool Dragon here, but I did add in an FA Dawn Dragster because sometimes I felt like I needed a second 7. This ended up being Dawn Dragster, but I feel like this could be a lot of different generic 7 Synchros. Samurai Destroyer, Black Rose, Moonlight Dragon, pick your poison. You're fairly flexible with some of the extra deck slots in this deck. So there is that. Then the 2 non-engine slots I did fit into this, because I went up to 42 cards, which is slowly but surely becoming like my preferred deck count for no reason other than funny number. Talents, yeah, good cards. Does help you sometimes recoup advantage after getting hand trapped. You do have a very big hand trap magnet in Hugin in the extra deck. And also the Morphtronic stuff does not like getting hand trapped. We're playing, still Braver Equips, Metal Silver, Raptinus, Life Extreme, but also 3 Morphtronic Repair units. Did shave the Morphtronic engine down to the very bare minimum. Repair unit being here as an archetype of Premature Burial, you're usually searching off of a Power Tool Dragon. But even with those shaves, there's quite a lot of space here that is, Morphtronics. Which is, sort of why this does not necessarily mesh super well with the Runics. The Braver equips here are for the Braver Dragon, because on summon he will equip himself with all 3. Raptinus and Metal Silver from the silly targeting lock, because the Raptinus makes the Braver untargetable, and the Metal Silver armor forces your opponent to target the Braver, so your opponent can't activate targeting effects. And Life Extreme just helps your Braver just withstand combat a bit more, since you're cutting down opponents' monsters by 1500, and if a monster's battle position is swapped, you can pop a card on the field. And now we're getting to the Runics. Playing 1 Fountain, you can activate Runic Quickplay spells from hand during the opponent's turn, and once per turn, if you activate a Runic Quickplay spell card, you can target up to 3 Runic Quickplay spells in your grave, place them on the bottom of your deck in any order, and then draw the same number of cards. Insane advantage engine. The only way you're going to make people play single target removal is by, either putting it on an extra deck piece or giving you a massive upside. And this upside is Runic Fountain in this case. All of the Runic spells have 2 effects, and if you activate them, you will be skipping your next battle phase, which is an important detail to remember. This was something to, get used to for a while. The 2 effects are usually a unique effect, so I'll be pointing that out when, I'm talking about the card. And then they also have an effect to special summon a Runic monster from your extra deck into the extra monster zone, which is why you're usually wanting to couple Runics with a Synchro Xyz deck to, help free up your EMZ again for another Runic spell, to keep using these as instant fusions with utility. Tips, not only instant fusion but also Rotor. This adds you any Runic card from your deck to hand except Tip, and then it banishes the top card of your opponent's deck. Flashing Fire targets a special summon monster your opponent controls, pops it, and then banishes the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. Destruction targets a spell trap your opponent controls, destroys it, and then banishes the top 4 cards of your opponent's deck. Freezing Curses targets an effect monster your opponent controls, negates its effect until the end of this turn, and then banishes the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. Slumber targets a face-up monster on the field, makes it indestructible by battle or card effect the next time it would be destroyed, but it can't attack this turn, and then banishes the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. And then we're getting to the bad ones. Smiting Storm just banishes cards from your opponent's top up to the number of cards they control. Golden Droplet draws your opponent a card and then banishes the top 4. Dispelling is if your opponent adds a card from deck to hand, except during the draw, you discard a random card from their hand and then banish the top 2 cards of their deck. Mainly playing so many of the bad Runics because Master Duel limits. Otherwise, you'd be playing a lot cleaner of a lineup and maybe playing one of each of these down here, but you do need a lot of Runic names to keep consistently finding 2 to 3, which is, yeah, it's a bit rough. But yeah, getting into the extra, we have Hugin the Runic Wings. If this is summoned, you can discard a card, add a Runic Field spell, which is, usually the way you grab Fountain. And then if has a destruction replacement effect. If another card you control would be destroyed by card effect, you can banish her instead. And if she on the field is destroyed by battle card effect, you can return her to the extra. Then we have Gary. Gary lets you add a non-quick play runic spell from the graveyard to your hand, which is usually the way you recur your fountain if it gets outed, which is very important since you do only have one here. And if Gary is destroyed by battle, you can target a card on the field and destroy it, which does come up sometimes. You can, going second, enter battle phase, activate a runic spell in battle phase, and then summon Gary, run into something, Gary pop a card on the field, which is pretty neat, honestly. Did help once or twice in breaking boards. Frecky is here to have an additional name, and also because the level adds up quite nicely. 5 is a very good level to have. And then we have Sleipnir, the runic main. During your main or your opponent's battle phase, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls, banish both it and the Sleipnir until the end phase. And if a card is added to from your opponent's main deck to your opponent's hand, you can generate a runic token. Sleipnir is something that does help you immensely in making like these big 10s, especially like Baron, of course, but also Chengying is incredibly cool, since all the runic spells banish top cards if you use their effects. This does easily become an interruption, which is kind of cool. For a very weird and broad Synchro lineup, we're playing a Shamisen Samsara Sorrow Cat. This is mainly here because it's a level 3 Synchro tuner that also has a quick Synchro effect, and that has a nice graveyard effect, because if this is in grave, you can target another Synchro in your grave, return the Synchro to the extra, and then special summon this, but it gets banished if it leaves the field. Which can come up, but this is mainly here to have a Synchro 3 to make with a level 1 tuner and Hugin, so you can clear your EMZ to continue playing. We have Earphone here, still a great card even if you're not making Naturia Beast, can be equipped from the graveyard to a Synchro monster, and then that monster can make 2 attacks on opponent's monsters during the battle phase, but mainly this is here for repeatable fodder for your braver dragon. There have been times where I was on 2 Earphone in this list. The extra deck went through like 16 swap arounds, so yeah, just to kind of accommodate the different levels, but I feel like I've gotten the extra deck down to like a point where I'm fairly happy with it. We have a super heavy samurai swordmaster Musashi here as a 5 of choice. This realistically could still be Naturia Beast, but I felt like Musashi was just like a lot nicer to have if you were forced to sync it off, and because it also gives you essentially follow-up, because if you synchro summon Musashi, you can target a machine monster in your grave, add it to your hand. Also, if you have Spell Trap in grave, can't normal or special it for the rest of that turn. Which is a rough lock, and you definitely will be under that often. But sometimes you can grab a Morphtronic that you might not need for that turn, discard it for a repair unit, and then keep playing. Or at the very least, you're grabbing a normal summon for the follow-up to keep playing then. Stardust charges here because I think Triage Master is a UR. Yeah, that's why Stardust charges here. And also because Triage in this deck wouldn't draw a card. Because you're most likely making Stardust charge with a 1 and a 5, so that's kind of the thing. Power to Dragon, searches you repair unit, kind of about it. FA Dawn Dragster is a Spell Trap negate, as mentioned. This could be a lot of different 7s, Black Rose Moonlight, Samurai Destroyer, whatever you feel like running realistically. Cyframe Lord Omega was my 8 of choice, mainly because this is disruption by itself, because you're hand looping your opponent off of it. This is able to put back banished stuff, so you can put back a banished fountain into the graveyard, which fountain will get banished, sadly. And also sometimes put Morphtronics you banish for like Smartphone or Remote and back into the graveyard, which can come and clutch on a follow-up. But it has yet to do so, admittedly. And in the graveyard, this guy can target another card in the grave, shuffle both it and that card from graveyard into the deck, which can also be nice recursion, especially since this is an 8 that just recurs itself. Then we have an Excel Synchro Stardust Dragon to easily let her into Braver, because this recurs a 2 or lower tuner on Synchro Summon. Braver is here to equip the 3 previously mentioned equips. And then during the main phase, you can send one of those, target an effect monster on the field, and either swap its battle position or negate its effects until the end of the turn. And then we have Baron and Chengying capping off the extra deck. Cheng getting some additional credit in here because he's a good boy, and also because with the runic spells banishing top cards from your opponent deck, this guy does become quite a house, especially on like a turn 3, turn 4. If you drop a Cheng, you can usually close out a game very, very easily. But with a lot of rambling out of the way, I do have a couple of replays I would like to show you guys where we kind of talk about the deck and how it works. Well, starting with replay number 1. This was one of the first games I actually played this event. Opponent is, or like one of the first games I played with this deck. Opponent is on Resonator, going through like Crimson Resonator, Wild Wind stuff. These are fairly old lines, especially if we're going Resonator core for a Crimson Resonator. I feel like we are on not necessarily the new cards, but passing back to me, hand is looking pretty good and gets better in a quick moment here by the addition of Runick Tip. I do use the tip here to grab a Freezing Curses, which just gives me basically a free-to-go button. Unless that back row is something relevant, the Supernova Dragon is not threatening my lines in any way, shape, or form. As you just saw on those reveals, this list was still on Converter, but I did shave that later down in, you know, just getting a feel for the deck. I believe in favor of the Gadget Gamer line because it's just a lot higher impact of a normal summon, accompanied by the runic spells, which is fairly nice. Once my opponent goes for the Supernova Dragon here, I do decide to Freezing Curses because, you know, that's kind of the point. And I do get to resolve Fountain for 3 here, which is probably what will take me over the top here in terms of advantage. This list, as you can probably tell, also still on Formula Synchron. You can run Formula Synchron in this, but I feel like in situations where it does come up, you can oftentimes just make another Synchro anyways with the levels you are running. Yes, I wouldn't have gotten a draw in here, but I also could have just made Earphone here, and the line would have probably played out the same. Sinking here into a Power 2 Dragon, as you can probably tell, this is like one of the main issues with the list, because the Morphtronic tuners are so leveled usually, you do need to like ladder through so many Synchros, which does make the extra deck space incredibly tight. But as the Power 2 Dragon hits the board here, my opponent decides to scoop it up. So with that, we are going to go into the next replay that I have. And if my eyes did not deceive me in the initial screen, this seems to be some sort of mirror match. I've opened very well. 4 Runics, including Fountain, is absolutely a dream. I think this was a situation where I found out you can't like chain a Runic spell to a Fountain to get the draw in, but you live and you learn, you know? I do go for the draw 2 here because I don't want to get too greedy, find a Soften off the top, which is really nice. But I don't feel too terrible passing in this situation. I do have a Flashing Fire at my disposal. I do have a Freezing Curses at my disposal. Opponent goes to pop the Sleipnir here in standby as I gain the counter. Summons a Bestial Druisworm. Going into combat, realizing he is not, you know, able to conduct his battle phase regularly. Trying to banish my Fountain here as I Freezing Curses the Chaos Angel. And my opponent has the cross out for it. Well, from here on out, I think the Morphtronics are going to do a lot of the heavy lifting. You see me go for Saffron here. I do want to retain my normal summon, trying to, you know, bait out interaction as best as I can. Hitting a second Saffron here, not revealing that I have, you know, a very potent normal summon and Gadget Gamer in my hand. Smartphone here, revealing Repair Unit, everything and then some. And as I put down the Gadget Gamer, my opponent has decided that he's seen enough and knows that this game is probably over. But with that, we are going to move into a final replay that was, admittedly, very cool. Once again, not a whole lot of turns on this one, but a lot of games did go fairly fast, even if this deck does have the potential to grind out games on the basis of, like, runic spells giving you, you know, consistent advantage. Fairly well, especially if you're sitting behind like a big Synchro idiot. Opponent is going off on some, you know, Umi stun shenanigans, ending on Jellyfish, Ocean Dragon Lord. Sending the Umi here to summon guys, but summon the guys, and then placing back a Legendary Ocean here. You can see me going to combat here, as mentioned in the deck profile, summoning a Gary in combat, crashing the Gary, popping one of the Ocean Dragon Lords. Going for a Flashing Fire here to force out the Jellyfish. And as I go to steal my opponent's monsters, my opponent has decided that he's seen enough and fires the, I believe it is the Sea Stealth attack out. I do steal the Fortress Whale because level 6 is fairly nice, because that way I can make a Powerful Dragon here. Powerful Dragon grabs me a repair unit, which I use to pitch this remote and summon it immediately back. Grab another smartphone in the process of this. I believe this was the game that made me add a second 7, because I think these two, the smartphone and the gadget hauler, would have stuck around otherwise. But as I make the changing, my opponent decides to pack up their cards and scoop this game up, because even if the Ocean Dragon Lord comes back, Cheng Ying doesn't really care about that. But yeah, with that, we are going to, I think, look at the deck list again, and I will be giving you guys some final thoughts. As you can see from the medal count, by the way, I did go all the way in this event, but that is mainly because this deck was a lot of fun. This was a whole lot of fun. The Runick engine did feel insanely good, even if I don't think it is the greatest fit for Morphtronics as an archetype, but I think that is something that with a bit more time spent on like theory crafting this can be salvaged. I think there's maybe even a world where I dust off Scannon, but I think that is insane people talk at the moment. And I will see about that once I maybe do spend the time to, you know, look at this in like a more constructed manner. Otherwise, as mentioned earlier, it's not the greatest Runick Splash, because your tuners are fairly low level and also fairly susceptible to interaction, as sometimes you do need more guys. Normal summons like Gadget Gamer and Southorn are just not tuners by themselves and don't get your Runicks off the board. Mainly, okay, because, you know, in this event you don't have SP, otherwise this deck would just be SP Turbo with, you know, quick play removal spells. But it is a lot of fun, and the Runick spells giving you consistent access to decent fusion bodies from the extra deck. Stuff like Sleipnir to make, you know, the big 10s, Freki to make, you know, 8s with like a Remoten, or go into a Stardust Charge Warrior with one of your level 1 tuners. Gary and Hugin are like a bit more awkward in terms of levels, even if Gary and Remoten do add up quite nicely into a Power Tool Dragon. But Hugin specifically is like a fairly awkward one. As you're seeing here, I did have to dig through some pack filler bulk for this one. Even if I don't think this card is terrible. I think Shamisen Samsara Sorrowcat is, I think, a very interesting card individually. But it's not quite Formula Synchron, I'll tell you that. But yeah, this is an interesting idea taken to, I think, further than it should have, but it was a lot of fun, and it did get me through the event, especially after that absolutely horrendous day 1. I think I can input, like, some screenshots of, like, you know, censored DMs I was getting, like, I think I got, like, sphere moded 3 times on that day 1 alone. Played into, like, absolutely insane like decks, and I got my ass handed to me. That's why I'm not posting that shit, and I'm posting this instead. But yeah, I did hear one of you guys was also on a Runick deck. Hopefully that went as well for you as it did for me. And for the rest of you, let me know in the comments down below what you took to the Fusion and Synchro event. Again, I really would have liked to make, you know, a Dragoon happen off of a Muddy Mud Dragon. I was trying my hardest, but at the end of the day, I did take a page out of a book of a world champion and asked the one important question that, you know, always remains. Has anyone ever tried playing Runicks with these? So with all that being said, I will be thanking you very much for watching. I'll be seeing you guys again next time. But until then, goodbye. God damn it.